In September of 2024, a National Guard operation resulted in the arrest of 10 armed individuals, the rescue of 2 kidnapped victims, and the discovery of a corpse. A team of 10 officials then inspected the place called Rancho Izaguirre with backhoes and dogs in search of more human remains, but they did not obtain any results. Practically no details were known about the survivors, no relevant interviews were conducted, no fingerprints were taken, not even inquiries were made about the property, located just a few kilometers from one of the most developed cities in Mexico. For reasons that were not too well explained, subsequent investigations into the case were interrupted. What the world still didn't know was that in that very place, an even more terrifying truth was about to be revealed. Why March 5th of 2025? An anonymous call alerted the Jalisco Search Warriors, a group of volunteers dedicated to searching for their missing relatives. Almost all members of the group are women, almost all the women are mothers, and it's that Mexico has been facing a disappearance crisis for decades. According to the National Search Commission, Jalisco has almost 15,000 missing people, making it the state with the highest figure in all of Mexico, which in total adds up to 120,000 people. The Jalisco Search Warriors then knew that they should not waste time. They rented a bus and quickly moved, escorted by the National Guard, to the aforementioned uninhabited ranch located on the outskirts of La Estanzuela. This rural town of the municipality of Teochitlan in the state of Jalisco is less than an hour away from Guadalajara. There was no need to force the entrance. The door was already ajar, as if the horror inside was eager to be discovered. Upon entering, they quickly came across the horror. The shed contained over 700 personal items, clothes, bags, backpacks, socks, toothbrushes, toys, and more than 200 pairs of shoes piled on the floor that had once been stored. The echo of thousands of steps. Steps that, as would soon be revealed, seemed like they would never resonate again. Because in a few hours, an underground crematorium was found on the site, then another and another. But let's not jump to conclusions. What occurred inside the Izaguirre ranch? What did the survivors testify? Is it true that they fed lions with human beings? What is the story, precisely, of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel? To answer these questions, it is necessary that we travel back to the year 2007, the day the Jalisco New Generation Cartel was born. Since 2007, information started circulating about a certain armed group. The so-called Matacitas had, as their name indicated, a single purpose: to exterminate the members of the criminal organization known as Los Zetas. The most powerful and violent cartel in Mexican history, involved in various criminal activities. Drug trafficking, counterfeiting and sale of illegal products, murders, bank and armored truck robberies, money laundering and even cybercrimes. The members of the Matacetas defended their actions, claiming that their enemies functioned as a terrorist organization that was guilty of numerous crimes against a number of civilians. That's why they proclaimed themselves as the armed wing of the people. They also claimed that their only purpose was to eliminate the drug traffickers who pursued this self-proclamation. It certainly helped them create an image of vigilantes. An image that was merely propagandistic, because in practice their methods were as violent and criminal as those they claimed to fight against. The group was actually the armed wing of the Sinaloa Cartel and was coordinated by one of its allies, Oscar El Lobo Valencia. The Mexican government once again demonstrated its impotence. The constant emergence of new criminal groups every few months was already a problem that seemed impossible to control at that time. In mid-2009, the Matachetas committed their first known crime. They executed 3 men in Cancun, covered their heads with plastic bags, and left a clear message next to them. "We are the new Matacetas group and we are against kidnapping and extortion. We will fight them in all states for a cleaner Mexico." Then the group began to show its presence, executing several members of the enemy organization and recording some interrogations on video. In these videos, the prisoners would often admit their involvement in criminal activities while pointing out several police officers and politicians who provided them with support and cover. By the next year, a key figure in this story would suffer, a fate that would change the course of events and begin to shape the crude framework that holds Mexico hostage today. Ignacio Nacho Coronel was a significant leader of the Sinaloa cartel, as well as one of the main people responsible for methamphetamine production operations in Jalisco. This man was apprehended by federal forces on July 29, 2010. Coronel had been key in incorporating the Millennium Cartel into the structure of the Sinaloa Cartel, and once he was killed, the group fragmented. The factions of the Millennium Cartel that backed him decided to distance themselves from the Sinaloans. This marked a significant turning point. Conversely, on August 22nd of the same year, an armed group claiming to be Zetas members intercepted a truck carrying migrants from Central and South America. They kidnapped these men and women and took them to an uninhabited warehouse in San Fernando, Tamaulipas. There, they offered them to join their ranks in the midst of the war they were waging against the Sinaloa Cartel and the Zetas, but the proposal was rejected. The result? 58 men and 14 women were immediately executed with a shot to the head. 72 undocumented immigrants ended up massacred in an event that would come to be known as the San Fernando Massacre. Their bodies were found 2 days later, after a survivor faked his death on the pile of his companions' corpses. He managed to escape and alert the authorities. On August 25, 2011, the Zetas burst into the Royal Casino in the city of Monterrey carrying gallons of gasoline and high-caliber rifles. After shooting at the people who were in the place, they set the establishment on fire. The death of 52 people was the tragic result of the site owner's refusal to pay a weekly fee to the criminal group. By the month of September, it would be the Matapots who would come into the scene, and this time they would be known worldwide. The bodies of 23 men and 12 women appeared on the main avenue of Boca del Rio in Veracruz. The murder of these 35 people included a note. The perpetrators of the crime urged the community not to give in to the extortions of the Zetas, in addition to issuing threats against said organization. The Zetas claimed responsibility for the massacre in a video spread through social networks, also leaving the following message: "No more extortions, no more murders of innocents." To the Zetas in the state of Veracruz and the politicians who support them, this is going to happen to you. This is going to happen to all the Zetas who continue to operate in Veracruz. This territory has a new owner. Initially, due to the nature of the crime, it was speculated that all the bodies belonged to members of the Zetas. It was later discovered that only a handful of them had minor criminal records. None of them, in fact, were linked to organized crime, although the murders continued indiscriminately. This event marked a phase change for the Zetas. A phase that would pave the way towards a new stage that would soon establish them as a dominant force in the organized crime scene. While there were several turning points and the Mataketa story underwent various changes, one particular event played a key role in the emergence and consolidation of a new and powerful organization. The arrest in the year 2013 of Jose Angel Carrasco Coronel, better known as El Changel. This event marked the end of the criminal partnership between the Sinaloa Cartel and the Zetas, later known as the Jalisco Cartel. New generation. With Nemesio Ceguera, Cervantes or El Mencho as its leader, a brutal war between organizations quickly began. El Changel's capture sparked violence across multiple states as rivals fought for control of drug territories. Plazas are known as strategic territories for drug trafficking, where cartels compete for the dominance of routes, production of substances, and illicit activities. In a desperate attempt to explain the violent situation, Daniel Velasco Ramirez, a top military official, disclosed that the primary conflict was between the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel. This was the first time a federal authority officially acknowledged the war between both groups, and also included mentions of clashes between a few others. The attacks continued. On April 7, 2015, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel blocked a route with burning vehicles on a mountainous highway in Jalisco. The target was the police officers traveling on the vehicle. Once the officers were trapped, they were attacked with machine guns and grenade launchers, killing 15 and injuring another 5. The message was clear: revenge for the actions of these forces. On May 1, 2015, the cartel launched coordinated attacks in Jalisco after false reports of their leader's capture. The result was narco blockades, vehicle fires, gas stations and banks, and the downing of a military helicopter that caused the death of 9 soldiers. And a violence that spread to various areas that unleashed panic in the population, a panic that over the years only managed to increase. During the 2018 electoral process, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel was implicated in the murder of over 130 candidates. demonstrating their power in certain regions of Mexico and using violence to impose their control, not only over rivals, but also over communities and local politics. On December 2nd, 2018, 2 grenades were thrown at the consulate in Guadalajara. While one of them left a hole about 40 centimeters in the building's wall, it was closed, and no victims were reported. It was unclear if the attack was carried out by the Jalisco New Generation Cartel or a rival group that tried to further damage its already tarnished reputation. However, this cartel is attributed with thousands of civilian homicides over the years, like what happened in 2019 during the Minatitlan massacre, where the Jalisco New Generation Cartel attacked during a birthday party and left a total of 14 dead and 3 injured, or the Coatzacoalcos massacre, which caused the death of 32 people and left another 3 injured in a bar known as Whitehorse. Indeed, the group has tried to clean up its image and has done so through, among other strategies, altruistic propaganda. During the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, it distributed toys and food in communities such as Veracruz and Guadalajara. They even filmed TikToks of their actions. Through their videos, the cartel always maintained the same stance, presenting themselves as nationalists and vigilantes, reaffirming their confrontation with the Zetas. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel engaged in multiple violent attacks from 2020 to 2022. On April 25, 2020, they raided a camp in Aguililla, Michoacán, killing 21 people. The following month, they ambushed Public Security Secretariat members in Veracruz. In August, former Congressman Miguel Medina Hernandez was murdered in his truck. Days later, a clash in Uruapan, Jalisco led to deaths among the cartel and National Guard. In September, another confrontation in Aguililla against the armed forces left 2 hitmen dead. Later, in August of 2022, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel sowed terror in Baja California, burning public transportation units and forcing a curfew in the state. By the year 2025, the group would once again dominate the headlines, shaking Mexico and the entire world with its brutality. And that's how our story returns to the beginning. March 5th, 2025, the volunteer group, known as Jalisco Search Warriors, arrived at the door of a property located in Teoxitlan, Jalisco. A young man had declared in a call that he had been held captive at that site. Upon arrival, they discovered that the door was already open, and upon entering, they found a scene that seemed to be taken from their darkest and most twisted nightmares. First bad sign, the earth looked manipulated. They then began to dig into the ground. Hundreds of small charred bone fragments began to emerge. On the other hand, other civilian searchers used a method as ingenious as it was effective to locate graves. By inserting metal rods into the ground and sniffing the tips, they were able to identify the smell of decomposing bodies. Meanwhile, some were dedicated to exploring the ranch buildings. Thus, they came across huge amounts of sneakers, clothes, bags, and all kinds of personal items. Within hours, they discovered the first of 3 ovens hidden underground. The presence of hundreds of pieces of clothing and charred bone remains provided evidence that they functioned as clandestine crematoriums. The ground outside was covered with debris, empty cans, broken glass, and trash remnants. Upon seeing semi-buried tires and barbed wire, suspicions arose that it was a training site. The Mexican authorities later located 6 areas with underground pits, 96 casings of different calibers, and metal clamping rings commonly used to inflict torture. The discovery quickly dominated the headlines of newspapers and television channels. The Izaguirre Ranch, with its 5,000 square meters, was used as a clandestine training center and also operated as a genuine extermination camp. It quickly became clear that it was run by one of Mexico's most feared and dangerous criminal organizations, the notorious Cartel, known for its extreme violence. Jalisco New Generation. In an operation carried out on the same ranch, just a few months earlier, 10 armed people, 2 kidnapped, and a corpse had been discovered. And while it is unknown why, the authorities did not find the shoes, clothes, and charred remains at that time. At least the reason behind the non-discovery of the graves was explained. They were sealed with a brick slab and a layer of soil. The State Attorney General, Salvador Gonzalez, argued that it had not been possible to inspect the entire ranch due to its vast size. However, the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, hinted that local authorities may have been negligent in their initial investigation. According to the leader, it was not at all credible that a situation of such magnitude had gone unnoticed. Other outraged voices believe that in reality the entire government is involved. The Attorney General finally removed all the belongings found, and they were shown to the public for recognition by the relatives of the missing. The authorities released an online catalog with images of more than 1,500 objects found inside the ranch. Families across Mexico have thoroughly examined the images. Those who believed they recognized an object went to the infamous ranch to try to confirm their suspicions in person. But public outrage with the state investigation has only continued to increase. And while the ranch was open to the public, there are wasted clues and a lot of unanswered questions. As the prosecutor's office investigates, there are concerns that authorities will shift responsibility and the matter will be forgotten, as is often the case. As the days went by, the most chilling stories emerged, those of those who had survived hell. Since the existence of the extermination and forced recruitment camp, Rancho Izaguirre was revealed. Various older people, mostly anonymously, for fear of the consequences, dared to recount the horrors they experienced within its walls. To begin with, how had they ended up there? Well, responding to certain online ads that promised to guarantee them something they were desperately looking for: job opportunities. The victims were deceived, summoned to bus stations or rented houses disguised as offices. Then they were taken to the ranch, believing they would work as farmers, bricklayers, electricians, cooks, or security guards. Reality differed greatly for them. Upon arrival, they were immediately subjected to military training. The goal was to join the ranks of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Criminal organizations have grown so much recently that they needed something fundamental to operate: constant personnel. Most of their employees, due to the nature of their work, tend to be killed or sent behind bars. And while most of the recruits in Rancho Izaguirre were taken by force, some testimonies indicated that other people joined voluntarily to collaborate with the criminal group. Everyone received a weekly payment of 3,000 pesos, which they could use when they were allowed to leave the place. The kidnapped could not ask questions. Those who dared to ask were immediately silenced with bare fists. The rest of their quiet companions, meanwhile, were assigned a nickname and tasks. Those who dared to disobey were directly executed and dismembered, but being obedient did not guarantee survival either. Many found death as a result of dehydration or the brutal beatings they were constantly subjected to. At Rancho Izaguirre, recruits were also trained in the use of weapons and torture techniques. In fact, the young people were forced to dismember the bodies of those who were executed or who died in the brutal training. This happened in a room known as the butcher shop. Later, their remains were burned. The motto there was clear, and witnesses remember it as if branded by fire: no body, no crime. Disobeying these commands resulted in cruel punishments. Testimonies reveal that some punishments involved being thrown to wild animals as food. There was even mention of the presence of lions for that purpose. All these brutal practices were coldly designed to eradicate any hint of humanity in those who had to endure them. One of the witnesses to the horrors of the Izaguirre ranch also stated that his training was conducted by former agents from the United States and Colombia. Of course, there were plenty of escape attempts. As a result, the walls of the ranch were riddled with bullet holes. Another survivor claimed that most of the recruits were eventually transferred to different locations in various states, and that only a few lost their lives on the ranch. In fact, once they were established in these locations, many, as if it had been their home, finally managed to escape. And as hope for the families, this survivor added that not all the shoes found belonged to dead people. It was possible that many of them were still alive. As he explained well, recruits were required to acquire tactical boots, while any other type of footwear was strictly forbidden. For this reason, the presence of sneakers or other objects at the abandoned ranch would not necessarily imply the loss of life of their owners. He also added another chilling detail, revealing that on multiple occasions the recruits were forced to consume the meat of those who died during training. The ranch is estimated to have been operating since 2012. And while it is just one among the numerous extermination camps that have emerged in Mexico in recent years, what was found there brought new and terrible evidence of an evil that seems to keep growing. Jalisco Extermination Camp, Ranch of Horror, School of Terror, and even the Mexican Ashwood are just some of the names it has received. the Force Training and Recruitment Center, located at Izaguirre Ranch. It is still unknown how many people lost their lives within its walls, and the remains have not yet been identified. In recent years, Jalisco has witnessed a significant rise in homicides, forced disappearances, and mass grave discoveries due to the Jalisco New Generation Cartel's dominance and expansion throughout the state. The nationwide organization, which mainly produced and trafficked synthetic drugs, has expanded its criminal activities. Not to mention, they have ventured into illegal logging, human trafficking, and extortion. The cartel is among the most dangerous in Mexico, fiercely battling the Sinaloa cartel for control of drug trafficking and territories. After winning this fight, the Jalisco New Generation cartel ousted its rival, and to the dominance exercised by it for more than 20 years, becoming the main target of Mexican and American authorities. Internationally, they have been compared to groups like Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. During the American government of Donald Trump, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel was listed among the 5 most dangerous criminal organizations in the world. In addition to having recently been designated as a foreign terrorist organization, the fight against drug trafficking has turned into a bloody war. It is not arbitrary that for the 6th consecutive year, the Latin American country has the stratospheric figure of more than 30,000 annual murders. During the administration of Enrique Alfaro Ramirez, governor of Jalisco, from 2018 to 2024, 165 clandestine graves were located, of which 125 were distributed in Guadalajara, Zapopan, Tlajomulco de Zúñiga, and Tlaquepaque. Despite Pablo Lamas taking charge in Jalisco, the crisis continues. Meanwhile, investigations are being carried out that make clear the complicity of the authorities and organized crime. The collectives of families of the disappeared continue to manage numerous demonstrations in different parts of the country, clamoring for one thing: justice. March 20th, 2025. Federal authorities arrested a man identified as Jose Gregorio Lastra Hermida, better known as Commander Lastra. The subject was identified as a member of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and as one of the leaders of the Izaguirre Ranch. According to his own testimony, the site served as a recruitment and training center, as well as a scene of tortures and executions committed by him and his accomplices. The activities of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel continue to demonstrate the impunity of the cartels and the inefficiency of the Mexican authorities in their fight against drug trafficking. Similarly, the discovery of the ranch in Teoxitlan not only exposes the brutality of organized crime, but also the deep failures of the state in its duty to protect the population. Injustice, fear, and pain define the lives of thousands of families who continue to seek answers. Meanwhile, they can only watch as their loved ones become part of a number that grows relentlessly. With the advance of these groups, Mexico faces an urgent dilemma: challenge the already entrenched cycle of violence or accept its presence as the new and sinister normality.